The difference between simping and respecting women. My name is Jared Mello, and this is an episode of Mello Mentoring. Please, I'm requesting scenarios and situations that people are struggling with, and I would give them my thoughts and opinions through the radical self-respect lens. And this goes for any kinds of situations, whether it's friends, family, significant others, work situations. I'd love to get the information about what's going on in your life, the scenario, and then I'd answer it anonymously on this channel. And I think it would help a lot of people to understand living with radical self-respect, practicing it, what it's supposed to look like. Because in the beginning, it's not always easy to know. And thank you for everyone who's been liking, commenting, subscribing. It's been awesome to have you. And audiobook of Radical Self-Respect coming out very soon. I'm just waiting for my man to finish the last 2 sections and get it Audible ready. And the ebook is already on Amazon now. And it's called Radical Self-Respect, Avoid Falling for the Same BS by Jared Mello, of course. But without any further delay, the difference between simping and respecting women. I got the idea of this the other day because there was a little meme that said, just because you're respecting women doesn't mean you're a simp. And I said to myself, yes, but there certainly is some overlap between the two. The biggest difference is a simp will disrespect himself in the process. Let me explain. So much of what a guy does, especially in the beginning, speaks about how he feels about himself. A lot of times, a guy will bombard a woman, you're beautiful, you're this, you're that, spend all sorts of his time and attention on the woman, and the woman will do nothing in return. To me, that's disrespecting yourself, and that's what a simp would do. Now, a simp doesn't value his time, doesn't think his attention is valuable, and his actions prove it. And it's disrespectful towards himself to be giving so much of himself for nothing in return. And here's the thing. Even if the simp is doing it with all of the right intentions and is not expecting anything in return, it is still disrespectful to continue without getting some sort of reciprocation, right? And a lot of people, most simps I would say, they're doing it, but they're trying to get something in return. So it's not just giving needlessly, selflessly, it's giving with the expectation. And what's the expectation? To hopefully get some love and approval that he probably can't give himself, or some sex, right? And that's why a lot of guys would blow up in someone's inbox when they don't get a response. They get ignored, and so they get mad because they were expecting something in return. And honestly, I can see where a lot of the MGTOW folks, they feel like they can't pursue women really without disrespecting themselves, so they decide to go MGTOW. And in fact, depending on the scenario, I can absolutely see that happening. Absolutely. Because it does seem like that sometimes. I'm a person that I think I'm kind of lucky, but I've done things where I've talked to women and it hasn't been much response at first, but eventually it's worked. So I did at some points disrespect myself, and I probably should have stopped. But sometimes women want to see how far a guy will go. They want to feel like the guy's really putting himself all in. They want to see how much the guy's investing. So they do that. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend doing that at all. And honestly, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think any person is worth disrespecting ourselves over. And I mean, what else does a simp do? Simp goes all in very quickly. He'll do buy sorts of gifts and try to spend money for nothing. And it's because deep down, not only does a simp disrespect himself, but often a simp doesn't have any self-worth and doesn't have any self-respect. And all of their actions prove it. You can't do the actions of a simp without having that lack of self-worth and having that lack of radical self-respect. Because if you did, you wouldn't be doing those things. Even if you weren't expecting something in return, just out of principle, you just wouldn't continue. Because you can't. You can't continuously give without feeling empty unless it's being reciprocated. So God forbid, you want to call a woman beautiful once? Okay. But you do it twice, and you get not so much as a thank you? You get not so much of any gratitude about it at all? Stop. Don't. They're not appreciating it. When we practice radical self-respect, we never consistently do things that go unappreciated. Never. Because it's just not worth it. And if a woman's not giving us appreciation after we've given some effort, next. That's it. Because people's actions communicate loudest of all. If someone really appreciates something, their actions will show it. And again, the simp does not understand this concept or chooses not to care. And it's becoming so socially acceptable right now to be the simp. With the advent of OnlyFans, with the advent of all these cam girls and sugar daddies, like it's everywhere. And women are taking advantage everywhere. I don't blame the women for this though. I blame the simps that allow it to continue. I mean, I just think it's disrespectful. Now, sometimes simps may also even get off on disrespecting themselves. And for them, I don't know what to tell them. There's not much to say about that. But, respecting women, there's nothing wrong with respecting women, right? But let's make sure it does not cross over into disrespecting ourselves. That's the major difference between respecting women and simping. Simping is disrespectful towards oneself. Simping comes from a place of insecurity, comes from a place of lack, of not practicing radical self-respect, not having a sense of self-worth. And they'll do these kinds of things. You will not see a man who really practices radical self-respect, who really has a sense of self-worth and boundaries. You will not see that man simping. Because it's just an incongruent behavior. Simps, again, often lack a sense of self-worth. They're doing something with the expectation of something in return. They don't get that return either. They don't get that reciprocation either. So they're trying so hard and they're not getting anywhere. And often a simp just isn't happy on his own. He doesn't know how to be happy and single. And again, that's where I'll give the MGTOW guys credit. To me, it's harder to go MGTOW and to completely stop with women than it is just to give in to all of your whips and whims, your biological needs as a man. Because for me, I've struggled with love addiction in the past, and it was hard. It was hard trying not to date at all and not to try. It's very difficult, which is why I respect the MGTOWs for doing that. I think it takes more resolve to do that than it is just to try to date constantly and be swiping all the time on Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, or whatever. And so I respect the MGTOW community for that. I think it takes some courage. It takes some radical self-respect to be able to cut women off completely and to try to be completely happy on their own. I think that's admirable. I don't know about anyone else, but I admire it. So again, I wanted to make this video because I think it's important. I think it's important to recognize the difference between simping and respecting women. There can be some overlap, but don't disrespect yourself in the process. That's the simping. Value yourself. Practice radical self-respect. Those are the big differences. So please comment below on what you thought about this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And with that, thank you very much for watching.